To my right on the challenging team, first lovely Ruta Lee.
My first guest today is an actress who's appeared in films like Funny Face, Marjorie Morningstar, Witness for the Prosecution, and a host of others, and had roles in a multitude of television programs, including The Adventures of Superman, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Twilight Zone, Dragnet, Gunsmoke, Perry Mason, Wagon Train, The Andy Griffith Show, Burke's Law, The Lucy Show, The Mod Squad, and on it goes. Pretty much any TV show you watched and are probably still watching today, Miss Ruta Lee was there to light up our screens and, of course, brighten our lives as well. Well, she has a forthcoming memoir in the works, and with all of this activity, I'm so glad that you chose to pencil in a little bit of time with us today so we can stroll down memory lane.
I sure can, David, and I'm so happy, proud, joyous, deliriously thrilled to be with you because you are an icon in your community.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you to say.
And I don't mean you're old. You're just an icon.
Well, right back at you, most
Thank you,
certainly.
darling, but I am old.
Well, you know, you look fantastic. I see these photos that are posted on Facebook of you and your little dogs. And
boy, do I have little dogs.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to take you right back to the very beginning today.
The very beginning, you bet your sweet bippy you can.
Speaking of which, your book, your forthcoming book, Consider Your Ass Kissed, will be coming out, I believe, sometime next year, correct?
I hope so. You know, I've been putting it together for about 10 years. I'm aging rapidly as I'm attempting to do it. I'll tell you something. Writing a book sounds so easy, like you're just going to sit down and do it. But then you really get into it, and the more I try to edit it, the more I add. It's just becoming more and more difficult. But thank you for mentioning it, and let me explain the title. In this day and age, when there are so many ways of communicating with people, I still like the idea of it being in black and white. And when I say consider your ass kissed, I mean whether you buy the book, whether you look at the cover, whether you just know anything about me, whether you've cared about me at all, if you've ever watched me in a film, I appreciate everybody that waltzed into my life or waltzed out, it doesn't matter. And I want them all of my friends, fans, and barely acquainted people or people I've nodded at, to consider their ass kissed.
Well, I think you're going to sell a lot of books. That's what I think. So going back to the very beginning, you were born in Canada, moved to California as a young girl, and your first experience with the movies was working the candy counter at a movie theater. Have I got that right?
Well, when I was going to Hollywood High, where Carol Burnett went and Alexa Smith went and a few other fabulous ladies, I got a job in the summer at Grauman's Chinese Theater, of course, one of the most recognized theaters in the world. And I felt very proud in my little tunic, Chinese tunic and little black swing pants. And, of course, these were the olden days when there were ushers and usherettes in theaters to see you to your row and your seat. And I would stand at the top of the aisles with my little flashlight going, oh, dear Lord, please let me be like Betty Grable. Let me be like June Haver. Let me be like Mitzi Gaynor. Let me be like Ethel Merman, the queens of the screen. And I just chomped at the bit to be doing that. I got promoted to Candy Girl. Well, listen, math has never been my long suit. And I've got to tell you that I could get along behind the candy counter because everything was 10 cents, 15 cents, 25 cents, 50 cents. I could deal with that. That wasn't too bad. Then one night the cashier got sick, and I got promoted to cashier in the box office. And they explained to me that you push $1.98 two times and put in $5 bill, punch that in, and it'll give you the right change. Well, I told you my long suit wasn't math. We were $40 short that night. And I got fired. And I said, oh, one of these days, my hand and footprints are going to be here, and you're going to be sorry because I didn't steal the money. I'm just no good at math, and I shouldn't have had this job in the first place, and I'm sorry. And years later, lo and behold, where is my star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame? But directly in front of the box office.
Ah, sweet revenge.
Isn't that heaven? Isn't that God-sent serendipity?
Yeah, absolutely. But you had been acting in school plays and the like all along, so you had already taken your first tentative steps beyond the candy counter at that point.
Oh, of course I did.
Yeah.
And my mother, who was the furthest thing from a show business mother, she was a peasant woman from Lithuania, who didn't go into the third grade, and she thought I was Lithuania's answer to Shirley Temple back in Canada when we lived in Montreal, and she always aspired to see me do something on stage and gave me the lessons and so on and so forth. I hated the lessons, but I loved the performing. And to this day, my darling friend, I loathe rehearsal, but I love performing.
Now, were you, I hate to use the word, but I guess I will here, were you discovered and given a screen test? Is that how it went for you?
If you want to call it discovered, I was taking classes from an old character actress whose name was Laura Casely Brooks. Not that it matters anymore. She's long gone. But she had a few students that she gave private lessons to. And I was her youngest student. I think I was all of 12, and going into 13, somewhere in there. And she would have these little group, not screenings, but showings of her talented people. She'd take a room at the Studio Club in Hollywood or a hotel or something somewhere, and she'd have her students do scenes. And the head of 20th Century Fox's talent department was a man named Ivan Kahn. And he sent his secretary to see what kind of talent there was. And she said, you've got to see this kid. Because I was innately a good actress.
Mm-hmm.
I could pull tears up at the drop of a hat, on if the lines called for it. And I was put under contract for about 20 minutes at 20th Century Fox. Of course, it was the end of the studio system.
Right.
They weren't putting people under contract much anymore. I think the one before me was Marilyn Monroe,
Right.
And my screen test was awful, and I won't go into why it was awful. It was awful because I wasn't given good material to do by a lady who I think resented the fact that Ivan's secretary brought me in and not she herself as the acting coach. And I learned early on in life that you aren't always treated nicely and fairly. There's all kinds of fish in the fire,
Right.
But it was still a great learning experience for me, and it was a very, very beginning for me. And then, of course, when I got my first movie job on Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, wow, talk about a learning experience. Those days we worked 6 days a week, not 5. And had to get in there very early, and it was like 6 or 8 weeks of rehearsals with Michael Kidd for the dance numbers. It was an incredible learning experience. And I got scared to death because of one of the boys during rehearsal didn't set me down properly. I was little, and so I was with the smallest dancer. Earl Brown was his name. And he sort of plopped me down instead of setting me down out of a lift and sprained my ankle. And I had to sit with my foot up for a week watching the rehearsals rather than being in them. And I kept worrying. I kept thinking, oh, my God, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get fired. But I never did. Thank you, Michael Kidd, one of the greatest choreographers that ever came down the pike.
Can I ask you about Witness for the Prosecution, 1957? Here you are with Marlene Dietrich and Tyrone Power, who was the movie...
idol.
Yeah, movie idol of all time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he was absolutely a sensational guy. Absolutely perfect. And when I went into the picture, I think this is in the book. The guys in makeup knew me, but I was new to the film, and I came in about 4 weeks after it started shooting. And what they did was put 2 sound stages together at the Goldwyn Studios and recreated the courthouse, Old Bailey, 3/4 scale, just fabulous.
Right.
And the boys in the makeup room said, Ruta, listen, don't pay attention to Charles Laughton. He's a nasty old gay guy. He doesn't like girls. You just do your work and don't pay any attention to him. He can get a little rough and tough on the edges. So I went in kind of with fear and trepidation because I would have to work with him. And as I walked in my pretty little tight dress that Grady Hunt did for me, and hat and perky little fur piece,
Uh-huh.
and I was standing there, and nobody came to say hello or come and sit down or do you want a cup of tea? Nothing happened. I just sort of stood there wondering what to do next, and suddenly someone came up and hit me on the behind. I went flying across the room. I turned around, and it was Charles Laughton. He said, "That's the best damned ass I've seen in years." And we became the best friends. And he and his wonderful wife, Elsa Lanchester, helped me with maintaining a middle British accent, which is not the easiest thing to do. We can all do Cockney,
Right.
and we can do very British proper English, but that middle English was a little tougher to maintain and do. And they would help me with it, and he would pout if I didn't come in and say hello to him in his dressing room every day. He taught me to play Perquacky and Giotto and all kinds of games, and I just adored him.
Guilty or not guilty? The answer to that question is the end of most mystery stories. But in witness for the prosecution, it is only the beginning of a series of climaxes that I defy you to guess. You'll talk about this picture all right, but you'll never tell the ending to your friends because you won't want to spoil their excitement and their fun.
And when it comes to leading men, how could I say anything but good stuff about Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin,
yes.
Sammy Davis, Peter Lawford, Joey Bishop, the Crosby Boys, all my leading men in Sergeant 3. And what a glorious thrill that was for me. And the only sad thing that I have to say about the whole thing is that they all treated me like their little sister or daughter, and I never had an affair with any one of them. Damn it, look what I could have put in my book.
And it seems to me like that set was one big party all the way through with those guys. I mean, hard work, but also a lot of fun.
You are absolutely right. And the tales about Frank saying, "I'll give you one take," are really quite true. He would come in and rehearse the scene a couple of times so that the director was happy and that the cameramen could line up the shots and so on and so forth. And then he would say, "Look, I don't care if it takes 3 days for you to set this shot up, but I don't want to hear when I get on the set, gee, the dolly board squeaked, or a light went out, or something didn't occur properly." He said, "I don't want to hear that. So take your time and do it." And he was very good about that. He would kind of stick to one, maybe if pushed a second take. But in the meantime, there was such laughter and such carrying on the set that it was a joyous thing to come to work every day. You just couldn't wait to get to the set because it would be such a delicious day.
Start a serious fire.
Big Daddy, one of these long, late nights, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
That's a clip from the Twilight Zone episode, A Short Drink from a Certain Fountain, featuring our guest today, actress Ruta Lee. We've talked quite a bit about your film work, and with the remaining few moments here, I do want to go through some of these television roles. And I know that you worked on Maverick, and you worked with James Garner and Jack Kelly, too.
I love them both. I really did. But my God, James Garner was really blessed with not only a lovely talent, but a great charm. and a great warmth and a great humanity. He was a very, very sweet guy. And, I think about how fabulous he was. And one day on the set, oh boy, am I going to get bounced off the air for saying this? Well, we'll find out, won't we?
Okay.
We were working with another actor who was a bit of a guy on a high horse, and acting up. And he said to him, "Why are you behaving like such a?" And he said, "Because I don't want anybody to say I've changed when I become a star." But Jimmy Garner was, I think everybody had a crush on him, whether you were a man or a woman. He just had a wonderful twinkle in his eye and a lovely gleam, and was a great guy, and I just adored him.
I'm jumping around here, and I don't mean to go out of chronological order, but sometimes I will hear stories about someone who worked with or knew Jerry Lewis, and they'll be negative stories, and yet recently I've been talking to people who've worked with him and have positive stories working with Jerry Lewis. I know you did in the 1990s, correct?
Yes, I did. I played his wife in a picture that has become a cult favorite.
Yes. Called
Funny Bones. And I had a wonderful time with him. He was always very good to me. He was, kind of reputed to be a real ladies' man and a lady killer.
Right.
And, supposedly had affairs left, right, and sideways. He never hit on me. He was always a buddy. He sent me a wonderful record player one time because I commented on how great the one in his dressing room was when I went to visit him. And, maybe something's wrong with me, but the guy's never hit on me. Maybe it's because I laugh through everything that they say or do.
And someone else you worked with on television, and he's been on this show many times. He's a friend of mine, Will Hutchins.
Oh, my goodness, Sugarfoot himself.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yes. What a sweet man. And where is he living now?
Well, he lives in New York.
How lovely.
Yeah.
What a sweet, sweet man he is. And I bet he still looks like a child.
Yes, I suppose he does. We are running out of time here, and it's such a shame because there's so much more to talk about. And I'm hoping that you can come back when your book is
hoping
when
Folks, you heard it here. He asked me.
I want you to come back on because as I look through this list, I have your credits here on television: Andy Griffith Show, George Burns and Gracie Allen,
my
Perry
very first job.
Oh, Dragnet, Peter Gunn, Bonanza, Gunsmoke, Rawhide. It just goes on and on. Folks, it's every show you've ever watched.
Rawhide was such fun for me because I got to be very good friends with Clint Eastwood. And even though we were good friends, as you may or may not know, Debbie Reynolds and I were the mother superiors of an organization called the Phalians,
yes,
which is Hollywood for Mental Health. And we raised funds. We raised an awful lot of funds, well over $30 million. And we did it by doing a big show every year with an invited audience, black tie, and we honored a star who didn't only dazzle us with their performances on screen or stage, but dazzled us with their philanthropic performances as well. And certainly that was Clint. And I begged him for 20 years to be one of our stars. I mean, we had everybody from Frank Sinatra through Lucille Ball through Liza Minnelli. And finally, after 20 years, I called him and said, "Listen, Toots, my birthday is the 30th of May. Yours is, I believe, the 29th. Why don't you give me a birthday present and be my honoree for the Thalians?" And he said, "Why don't you give me a birthday present and don't make me come?" But I got the son of a gun, and he was out-frigging standing. He was wonderful.
Well, I hope when you come back, we'll talk about Funny Face next. We didn't even get to that.
Oh, yes.
And
Fred Astaire.
Oh, my
Audrey
goodness.
Hepburn.
Oh,
woo, woo, woo.
I know. It's fantastic. And people can catch up with what you're doing on your Facebook page.
They sure can.
Yeah.
My beautiful assistant Judy does that for me very nicely. I'm like an idiot. I have a hard time dialing my cell phone. I'm not sure what I'm doing with it.
Well, I hope to speak with you next year, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
I thank you. I thank you for the time. Thank you for sharing your wonderful audience with me. May God bless us, and may God bless America.